Welcome everyone to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host MagMongoSlade, and we're here to talk about Smackdown from September the 8th, 2023. This is going to be a little bit late because it was my mom's birthday. So, happy birthday to Mama Slade. Everybody, thank you very much for all your well wishes. She's going to have surgery again, so that's very unfortunate. But at least she had fun on her birthday, so that was good. Now, let's get into Smackdown. Again, we'll try to do this pretty quickly. So, half the roster, as a matter of fact, most of the roster, was in India for the WWE Superstar Spectacle, which was not televised, but apparently there is some Indian streaming service where you can actually watch the show. I have not watched the show yet. If I decide to watch it, which I probably won't, because of, well, what the revelation that came out of the show. Not just that John Cena was going to be in a tag team match with Seth Rollins against Imperium. That didn't bother me at all. What bothered me is Natalya wrestled twice on this show. Becky Lynch apparently couldn't get into India because she tore her passport, which she said is a tiny tear in her passport. It made her not be able to travel. They had to fill her spot, and they gave it to Natalya, who ended up wrestling her own match. So Natalya wrestled twice on this show, which, now if I do find a stream, I really don't want to watch it because Natalya twice, 2 doses of Natalya, God, that's Kevorkian level booking. You couldn't find anybody else? That's Jack Kevorkian, cocktail of drugs in your veins. You will die from watching Natalya wrestle twice. I feel so bad for the Indian market. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry you couldn't get Becky Lynch, so you had to get double dose of Natalya. That sucks. Also, Gunther seemed to have wrestled Shanky in a match where they just chopped each other in the chest. What? Why would I want to see that? Where's Shanky been? I thought he was dead. I thought he was fired. Apparently, he's still around. Great Khali stepped out of retirement, said he got one more match in him. I wonder where that's going to be. He needs to match himself to an appropriate bed and stay in it. The rest of Superstar Spectacle didn't seem like it was anything worth talking about. But, I'm a wrestling fan. Maybe I'll check it out if I can find a stream. Maybe I won't. We'll see in the coming days if I can actually find a stream. Alright, so Zelina Vega and Finn Balor were both asked about working with CM Punk. Zelina Vega loves CM Punk, which tends to be a thing with the females. He seems to do really well with women. Because the women are like, oh my god, CM Punk, I would love it if he came in. And that was essentially Zelina Vega's argument. I believe they've had some run-ins in the past. So maybe they know each other. But she seems to be really excited. And she wants CM Punk in WWE. Okay, fine. That's cool. Finn Balor, on the other hand, seems to not really care either way. And kind of said he will wrestle a broomstick if they paid him. I don't know if that was in character or not. But he's basically saying, if they pay me to wrestle CM Punk, I'll wrestle CM Punk. He doesn't seem to have a problem with them, but he's not overly excited about the idea either. So, it is what it is. And I wouldn't be lying. I would be lying if I say that Finn Balor versus CM Punk wouldn't be an intriguing match. That, to me, would be very interesting. And I don't know if I said it before, but I'll say it this time. There are matches that CM Punk could have. There is a run he could have in WWE that would be successful. Truly, I believe that. I believe that if CM Punk was operating on an island by himself, where he got to work with only the people who wanted to work with him and people that he wanted to work with, then he would do very well. Similar to Edge, similar to Brock Lesnar, if he came in every once in a while, wrestled a guy he never wrestled before, or somebody that he get along with, and he even has a long program with them, or a storyline with them, or whatever, that could be fun. There's talk about maybe he could work with Kofi Kingston, who he's a big fan of, and he's a friend with. He's been a friend with Kofi Kingston for years. There's other people he hasn't wrestled before that are in WWE now. And there's talk that maybe people in Endeavor will actually want CM Punk on the roster. But that's just, hey, we can't get CM Punk through the front door. Let's get in through the window. I don't think Endeavor will try to force CM Punk onto WWE if they don't want him there. So I don't believe that. So next is WWE will be officially purchased by Endeavor on Tuesday. So a lot of people, are expecting some big changes. There's been a lot of talk of people getting released, firings, etc., which always happens with corporate mergers and buyouts. People get fired, people get let go because you don't need 2 vice presidents, so blah, 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 blah. And you're only going to have one. And so there it is. Endeavor will probably not mess with WWE too much, at least eventually, at first. Maybe you're talking about maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, they may start meddling with the company as people start to die off or retire or whatever. But all these dirt sheets are talking about there's people afraid for their jobs. It's like, yeah, whenever a company gets bought, you should be afraid for your job because the guy who hired you is probably not the boss anymore. And that's exactly what happens. Even though Vince is probably not going to have more power after the purchase, he's going to be even Dana White's boss. He's not going to be in the muck and mire of WWE. And so that's not really much of a concern. But there's definitely likely to be some middle management people and some lower level people who are going to get released from their contracts and fired. Will it be wrestlers released? Don't know. That's something that I'm actually looking forward to. That's really the only thing I care about is creative and the wrestlers. Are there going to be wrestlers that are going to get cut eventually? I do believe they're probably overdue for some cuts in WWE. Triple H has tried to reverse that trend of the yearly post-WrestleMania cuts because it was so bad in 2020 and 2021. He's been trying to reverse that, but it's inevitable that they will have to refresh the roster eventually. And with Endeavor now running the books, they'll probably want them to cut the roster size down a little bit. But it is what it is. All of this is to be expected. Don't get shaken by the dirt sheets. I mean, this is just what happens when companies get bought out, people lose their jobs, and then there's a refresh of talent. You know, the new bosses want to get their guys in, but Endeavor has not shown that they're willing to do that, at least not right now. So they'll probably leave Triple H in charge, and that'll be that. All right, so let's get into this show. Now, the remaining cast of WWE that did not get sent to India. Charlotte Flair and Shotzi defeat Damage Control, which was Bayley and Io Shirai. A new look for Shotzi. She's wearing a jacket, like a long coat now, rather than her sort of army jacket. I'm not sure if it fits, especially since she got the tank and everything, but I guess they're just trying to modify her look a little bit. Whatever. Bayley came out, and she ended up stomping the tank, which was funny. I love Bayley. I love Auntie Pam, not just because she's thick. And if you've seen that picture of Bayley at the Beyonce concert, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to find it and put it in the Discord for you. But it's a simple picture. It's not too over the top, but you know what Bayley is hiding under them tights. Anyway, Shotzi ends up pinning Bayley because Asuka distracted both Io and Bayley by getting involved in snatching the women's title and doing a bunch of other shenanigans. This led to Shotzi getting the pin on Bayley. And even though Shotzi has won again, she again did not win on her own. Even with Charlotte Flair in the tag team match, she still did a distraction finish, which, you know, makes her look weak. There's just no way around it. They have no faith in Shotzi. It's very unfortunate. I noticed that Charlotte has started doing a cartwheel lariat. It's kind of slow, but it's actually not too bad. I think it's pretty cool. After the match, Asuka and Io were face to face, and they were talking to each other in Japanese. Io looked a little surprised, a little shaken, a little stirred up. But then Asuka danced away, and they put the title in between them, which kind of the non-verbal way of a challenge. Later, we got the verbal challenge, as Io said that she wanted to fight Asuka for the title. And Bayley said that Asuka better mind her own business, or they're going to put her on the shelf like they did Bianca Belair. Speaking of Bianca Belair, she is not on the show because she's on vacation. So it's not just, Triple H has forgotten that she exists. It's that she actually has been the workhorse, so they gave her some time off. Okay, fine. I like that. It's fine. Next, we get the Bloodline story, which has people pretty pissed off because they don't like it. They don't like that Jimmy Uso is going back to the Bloodline, even though, if you pay attention, it's actually a suitable story. I know, I'm a WWE shill, all this kind of stuff, but I'm a guy who pays attention to stories, and this actually makes sense. So Jimmy Uso shows up. He goes to Paul Heyman. He's wearing a shirt, We the Ones. And he says that nobody told him he was out, so he's in. And Heyman looking at him and said that, look, Roman's not here, Solo's not here, only I'm here. And Roman haven't said that you're in. There's two different ways to be in. That is, you're in the Bloodline, and then there's you're in the Bloodline. And Roman hasn't said that you're in, so you're in, but you're not in, you know? Technically, he's related, so he's in the bloodline, but he's not down for the bloodline. So then Heyman tells him that he wants him to handle the AJ Styles problem, and if he does that, then Heyman will bring the family back together. This leads to Paul Heyman toddling down the aisle before he runs into an unbelievably yoked AJ Styles. I don't know what AJ Styles, I'm just watching this show, and for some reason AJ Styles is huge. I don't know what's going on, but he seems like he's massive all of a sudden. I don't know how that is, because he's like he'd be the same size, but he's like he put on a significant amount of muscle. Now, he's not Eddie Guerrero all of a sudden, you know, where he's bulging in places. He looks solid. But for a guy who's almost 50, he looks fucking phenomenal. Like, you know, legit, you know. So, it is what it is. Heyman gets in AJ Styles' face and says that Heyman says that he's not the guy that AJ wants to tangle with. That allows Jimmy Uso to attack AJ Styles from behind and threw him all over the place as he's trying to impress Paul Heyman. Later, AJ Styles says that he's going to fight Jimmy Uso. He's going to tear him apart. Then he says nothing's going to stop him from getting his hands on Jimmy Uso. Later, he finds Michin and the Good Brothers making jokes and having way too much fun. And he's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What are you guys doing? Why are you guys not focused? Carl Anderson said, look, I told you we don't want anything to do with the bloodline. And so AJ Styles was like, what? After all these years of having each other's back, all of a sudden you guys don't want anything to do with the bloodline. All right, fine. I don't want you guys to do anything in my match later on. I want you to stay here, mind your business, get out of my face. So then everybody else is like, well, fine, if that's how you feel. So main event of the evening, Jimmy Uso versus AJ Styles. Jimmy Uso's offense is so limited. It is basically just super kick and punch. That's essentially it. I couldn't tell you any other move Jimmy Uso did in this match, but it was basic storytelling. They are showing you that Jimmy Uso is not good alone. That's the entire story. It began last week. That Jimmy Uso is nothing without the bloodline. Or that he's trying to be something more than he really is, realizing that he's not, and then trying to fold back into the bloodline. Case in point, Solo Sikoa comes out to ringside with Paul Heyman. And all of a sudden, Jimmy gets a little bit more vicious. He gets a little bit more violent. He's trying to prove himself to Solo and Heyman that he should be back into the bloodline. This is the only part of the match where he really is getting a control of AJ Styles. Solo Sikoa ends up getting kicked in the head by AJ Styles. Paul Heyman gets scared off by AJ Styles. And ultimately, Jimmy Uso gets pinned with the phenomenal forearm. At that point, AJ Styles has won the match clean, you know, beating the shit out of Jimmy Uso. Then he gets jumped by the Judgment Day, who wrestled earlier in the show. We'll talk about them momentarily. The Judgment Day beat the shit out of AJ Styles. Nobody from the OC came to help him. That was another point that you were supposed to pay attention to. And then Solo Sikoa landed the Samoan Spike onto AJ Styles. So they're now telling this story about the Bloodline and Judgment Day, which one is the most dominant faction. And Judgment Day on their first night on SmackDown actually did the Bloodline a favor by taking out AJ Styles when Jimmy Uso failed to do so. So they're telling you a couple of stories here. One, they're slowly but surely breaking up the OC. They're going to separate AJ Styles from the rest of these guys. So it seems like AJ's, I guess his last run is about to be pretty substantial. A lot of people have led to believe that AJ Styles is going to wrestle Roman Reigns at some point. I hope so. I love those two guys working together. That could be really good. That could be really fun. AJ Styles has been, you know, he's been on the back burner for like 2 years since the whole thing with Omos. It hasn't been any good. So he's been on the back burner for a while. Him stepping up and being a main event guy again, I love that. That's great. The second story is that the Bloodline, you have, again, like I said, Jimmy Uso. Last week he tested John Cena. It didn't work out. He tested AJ Styles. That didn't work out. And then he got in Solo Sikoa's face and he almost got Samoan spiked. He had to, you know, Heyman had to save his life. So they're showing you that Jimmy Uso is not him. He's not Jay. Jay Uso is taking over to Raw. So basically the story now is the Usos separate. You know, Can Jimmy do it on his own? We've already seen that Jay can, because main event Jay Uso has been a thing for 3 years. Can Jimmy do it on his own? And we see how quickly he basically gave up on doing it on his own. When he tried John Cena and it didn't work out. And then he tried AJ Styles and it didn't work out. He immediately started going back to the Bloodline. Like, oh my God, I'm in, you know, we the ones, and all this kind of stuff. Now, is it possible that this is some kind of a subversive thing where Jimmy's going to try to take down the Bloodline from within? Well, it's possible. But if we believe, and I think we all believe this, that Jimmy Uso versus Jay Uso is the match for WrestleMania, then the idea that Jimmy can't do it on his own and that he needs Jay, that's going to be the story, is that he's going to probably try to force Jay back into the Bloodline. And maybe that'll be the stipulation for the match, that if Jimmy wins, Jay has to return to the Bloodline or whatever. And that could be fun. So they're showing you right now that Jimmy Uso ain't Jay. They're characterizing them differently. And they're showing you that, you know, one of them at least feels like he needs the Bloodline, while the other one doesn't need the Bloodline. And you see how they both interact with others, where basically Jay Uso goes into the Raw locker room. He immediately polarizes the locker room. There are certain people there who don't like him, and he's got to constantly watch his back and look over his shoulder. And he just wants to be a guy on his own. Meanwhile, Jimmy Uso tried that. It didn't work out. And now he's immediately trying to go back to being on the Bloodline. So what I expect is for Jay to sort of thrive by himself. And for the story to be that he never needed Jimmy in the first place. And then for Jimmy to get jealous and attack Jay and screw up his career and all that kind of stuff, leading to maybe they'll do a will they, won't they fight kind of situation like they did with Brett and Owen. Which, you know, they've already fought a little bit, so maybe they won't do that. So there's stuff there, but that's the story now. The story now is about the Usos being on separate brands. That's the Bloodline story now. And I know a lot of people are frustrated because Jimmy seems like he's going backwards, but he's being a hypocrite. He was the guy who left because he felt like he didn't need the Bloodline. And he also felt like he always had Jay, but now Jay's gone. Jay doesn't want anything to do with this. Jay's gone. Now he feels like, I can't make it on my own. I have to hook up with Solo. And I've said before that maybe Solo and Jimmy as a new version like the Samoan SWAT team or something like that could be interesting and could be fun. And I think that might be a good idea. Especially now that we have seen that they're going to mix it up with the Judgment Day. And maybe they're mixing it up with the OC, depending on how AJ Styles and, you know, those guys interact from now on. It could be that Solo and Jimmy ends up wrestling for the tag team titles against the Judgment Day, or end up in tag team matches against the OC. That could be fun, you know. So there's leaving the door open for other people to come in now. It's not a cocoon story anymore. But I understand that people are frustrated with the big Bloodline Civil War, and now we're seeming to reverting back the other way. But situations has changed, you know. Characters have changed. They are developed a little bit more, and now they're fleshing out, you know, how the Usos are as solo acts. So this is perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. Am I thrilled about it? No. But the fact that they're teasing the breakup of so many stables, like they've been teasing the breakup of Imperium, they've been teasing the breakup of the OC, they were teasing a breakup of Damage Control. They've been teasing breakups for weeks. And sometimes they tend to forget, like they forgot that Damage Control was teasing the breakup, and they haven't done anything in a while, so they just kind of let it go. I would imagine that's going to come back up eventually, but whatever. And they broke up Trish Stratus and Zoe Stark, so they constantly teasing. You know, they broke up Ronda and Shayna. Triple H is. Friendship and breakups, it's heartbreak and triumph and all, you know, it's boring. It's stupid. It's the same storyline over and over and over again. I don't know why he insists on doing it that way, but at least they're trying to do something different with different characters. And maybe in terms of the OC breaking up, you'll leave Mi Chen in the middle as, did she go with AJ or does she go with the OC? Because she seemed to be more friendly with Gallows and Anderson. And AJ Styles seems to be more focused and more aggravated and irritated about what's going on here. All right. So LA Knight, who supposedly has a new big fat contract, he comes out to cut a promo, and first thing he does is absolutely flame Kevin Nash. Because he says, look at the Miz's theme song, I came to play. And he says, if I was an absolute moron, I'd say, look at the adjective, play. But he says, but I'm not, so I'll talk about the verb. He says, he's not here to play. He's here to go to the top. While the Miz plays dress up, and now he's playing make-believe. And he said he doesn't need Cena. He doesn't need Cena's endorsement. And he wants a rematch with the Miz to prove to Miz that he doesn't need that. He's interrupted by Grayson Waller, who says that Theory is his new associate and that they're an undefeated tag team. Then Theory bragged about beating John Cena and LA Knight, and then ran down his resume, conveniently leaving off that he won the Money in the Bank. Very weird decision. I beat John Cena. I beat LA Knight. I think he said he beat Edge too, which he did. But he never mentioned winning the Money in the Bank. Interesting. LA Knight called Grayson Waller a mushmouth moron and referred to Austin Theory as a cross-eyed halfwit. And then they had the match, which was LA Knight versus Austin Theory. Now, Austin Theory was criticized by Brian Alvarez, of all people, of course, for wrestling like a 1990s wrestler and saying all the young guys are lapping him. All the young guys in the business are lapping him. They're better than he is. Stop wrestling that old style, despite the fact that we claim we also like old wrestling. Look, I don't even understand what's old about Austin Theory's style, and I was actually paying attention in this match, and maybe because he did a shoulder tackle. You know, he did it did the old drop down, run off the ropes, come back thing. Very basic stuff. I don't understand why everybody has to wrestle like Will Ospreay, which is probably not smart, especially if you're trying to wrestle for a long term. I mean, you've got plenty of guys doing the I'm going to point to the ropes and run at the ropes, Nick Wayne, Ospreay, Kenny Omega shit. There's plenty of guys doing that. If that's what you want people to do, there's plenty of people doing that. So I don't see why we should criticize Austin Theory for not working that way. Now, him having very, very basic offense, I can maybe see that as a legitimate criticism. But him working an old style, no, I prefer the old style because it's different to what all the other young guys are doing, which is basically destroying themselves, doing Phoenix splashes outside the ring, tearing up their knees and taking stupid bumps on ring aprons and all this kind of stuff. We don't need everybody doing that. And who cares if all the other guys are quote unquote lapping him, because none of them are making the money that he's making except MJF. And MJF is pretty much the only one that is in Austin Theory's age group that has succeeded and done more than he has. So and MJF has been doing matches with the double clothesline, which is a move from the fucking 80s. And he was also doing something with the headlock takeover, which is as basic a wrestling move as possible. Every big brother on planet Earth has used the headlock takeover on their little brother. So this is ridiculous. And besides, who the fuck is Brian Alvarez to criticize anybody's wrestling? Have you seen Brian Alvarez wrestle? For fuck's sake. I'd rather watch two scorpions fuck than watch Brian Alvarez wrestle a match. He's one of the single worst wrestlers of all time. And he's not even really all that good as a wrestling analyst. He sucks. So him criticizing Austin Theory, no big deal. Doesn't matter. Anyway, Austin Theory's match with LA Knight was okay. Grayson Waller was on commentary talking about how John Cena is going to be on the Grayson Waller effect next week. Interesting. Very interesting. It looks like they're going to do a tag team match, maybe. I saw some whispers about John Cena and LA Knight versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. That could be fun. I pitched the Waller Theory thing months ago, and glad that they're finally getting around to it. I wish they would loosen up Austin Theory's character a little bit. He still comes across as very stiff, and since we've seen him do more fun stuff than what he's been doing, I'm looking at this and maybe this is what he's being told to do in terms of how he's portraying the character. Because when he was working with Vince, he was a much looser, more fun character. He was also a lot more over at that time, but now he seems very uptight, and I'm not sure what's going on there. Again, I've been very critical of Austin Theory's handling by Triple H. Very, very critical of that. I understand you don't want to do too much with him right now because You know, you've got a lot of those top spots to filled already, and you're telling stories with other people. Still, however, Austin Theory is an important piece for the future, and you would think he would be pushed a lot differently, but they seemingly have decided to go with Grayson Waller, who's a little bit older than Austin Theory. I think he's like 5 or 6 years older than Austin Theory, and he's going to be sort of the mouth of this group. And maybe Austin Theory is going to be the work rate guy, while Grayson Waller is the voice. And that's fine, because Grayson Waller is a better promo than Austin Theory, while Austin Theory looks the part and wrestles better. But Grayson Waller is no slouch in the wrestling department. He just looks like shit because he has no muscles. You know, like he has no muscles and he's entirely too skinny. But I love Grayson Waller because his look actually fits what he's doing, as he's a shit-talking talk show host. So it wouldn't make sense for him to be like big and muscular and stuff. He looks like, you know, Jimmy Fallon trying to be a wrestler or something like that. So it's okay. Now, the Brawling Brutes end up being the tomato cans for Judgment Day. I legit fell asleep on this match because I couldn't figure out a reason to care. Like, the Brawling Brutes being the tomato cans. Look, Triple H's booking is very much like Tony Khan. I don't know when the last time Butch and Ridge Holland won a match. How did they end up wrestling the tag team champions? I'll never know. But Triple H likes Butch and Ridge Holland, so they get the match. Judgment Day came out and cut a promo talking about their accomplishments, and they did what the Bloodline can never do, which was beat Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and took the championships. Ridge Holland came out there and says that he's been making a career of breaking fellas like them, but it's not him that they should fear. They should really fear Butch, to which Finn Balor started mocking Butch before he got his fingers bent backwards. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. Of course, Judgment Day ends up winning in the end. Pretty Deadly was watching this match. I think it was very controversial that they would have Ridge Holland say that he's made a career out of breaking fools like Judgment Day, because this guy pretty much ended Big E's career. And you got the one guy from Pretty Deadly backstage with his arm in a sling because after having a match with Ridge Holland. So if they want to use Ridge Holland being dangerous as part of his gimmick, I'm okay with that. But it's very, very surprising that they would do so, knowing how people feel about Ridge Holland. Very interesting that, you know, they would use that as a way to get him over. So after the match, Lashley and the Street Profits, they came and got in the face of Judgment Day. They said to Judgment Day, you guys aren't running the WWE, we are. And it was a very tense stare down. I like it. And it seems that if they go this route, this is a good way to bring Bianca back as sort of the chief rival for Rhea Ripley. That Rhea Ripley is going to be the person who is going to be and she has been for a long time, the outside factor against, you know, opponents in for Judgment Day. You're going to need somebody to counteract her, Bianca Belair, who is married to, of course, Montez Ford. She can counteract Rhea Ripley. But they're on two different brands. I don't think Rhea Ripley can come over just because the other two, or three, can. Maybe is there some kind of Freebird rule where Dominic Mysterio gets to go wherever he wants? That's what I want to know. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, Priest and Balor. Okay, makes perfect sense. They're the tag team champions. They can go wherever they want. But Dominic? I don't know about that one. You know, like, how can Dominic go wherever he wants? Unless he's, like, one of the tag team champions, too. And it's a Freebird rule where he can defend the titles if he wanted. Since I haven't been told that, there's no reason to believe that. Ergo, why is Dominic on SmackDown? I don't know. But Rhea Ripley was in India, wrestling Natalia, which is an infinite waste of her time. And I feel very bad for her. I'm sure she would much rather be taking a nice long nap or, you know, in a warm bath or, you know, watching candles burn than wrestling fucking Natalia in front of who knows how many people in India. Does anybody know what the attendance was for this Indian show? Did they sell a lot of tickets for this show or whatever? I did see a little bit of the footage that people recorded, like fan cam of Superstar Spectacle, and it seemed like a pretty big building, but it was very dark, so it felt like a really big, high-level house show. In any event, Rhea Ripley wasn't on the show, which, you know, they're teasing that Lashley and the Street Profits are going to be involved with Judgment Day, which could lead to Lashley's whatever his association is called versus Judgment Day as a group, which of course they need to add 2 more members, a female member and somebody to wrestle Dominic, which maybe that would be Lashley. If you think Lashley wrestling Dominic Mysterio, that's only going to be a lot of fun, because Dominic would definitely have to take a lot of bumps. Okay, so in closing, I really enjoyed LA Knight's dig at Kevin Nash. I thought that was excellent. That was very fun. It's going to be interesting watching Nash respond to this, or if LA Knight is going to get some heat for saying it. I'm pretty sure Triple H and Kevin Nash, I don't know if he's the kind of guy who would, make a big deal, make a beef over it, but if he wanted to, I guess he could. But, hopefully he just takes it in stride and maybe makes a little comment about it on his podcast, and he doesn't make a make a phone call like in the Mafia, and it's like, who the fuck does this guy think he is, burying me on SmackDown? Got me trending on Twitter because he buried me on SmackDown, even though he didn't say his name, but everybody knew what he was talking about. They also did a little skit I forgot to talk about LA Knight and Paul Heyman, where LA Knight went and barged into the office, and while Heyman was in there, and Heyman tried to big league LA Knight, got in his face, kind of a little threat, just a little bit of threat, and people are thinking this is going to lead to LA Knight and Roman. I think it's more going to lead to LA Knight and Solo, but that could be fun too. LA Knight, is supposed to be getting a big push now that he's got his fat new contract, so hopefully things work out. The show was a decent show. Clearly they didn't have everybody that they should have because some of the people were in India, but it was also not enough people missing that the show lacked anything. So the Bloodline story, which has been carrying SmackDown for years now, is now starting to come down a little bit. It has at lull in the story that sometimes happens, and people are kind of like, I don't know about this. And they brought in John Cena, even though John Cena wasn't on this show, so they brought in Judgment Day as if that's a substitute. It's not, but they're now elevating AJ Styles again, which is a positive. So let's see where that goes. And what do you guys think? Let me know, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.